Hey, everybody, welcome to Buzzing About Romance. I am Becky, and joining me for this episode is Leah. Hi, Leah.
Hi.
And Jenny. Hey, Jenny.
Hi, Becky.
And Amanda. Hey, Amanda.
Hello.
Okay, we were talking a little bit before, but I had a great reading week. How was your reading week?
Yeah. It was okay.
You should
I
just
had a
do what
couple
Jenny
really
does and only read the books I tell you to read.
well, I honestly work was crazy. I got a new computer at work, so I had to set that up and it is not it's not fun. And so I read some backlist stuff because I just was not in the mental headspace for new things, but I did read a couple new books that were very good.
What about you, Amanda? How was your reading week?
Slow. I haven't really been reading that much new stuff. I'm still just kind of backlist binging here and there, but yeah, not a lot of new stuff.
Not a lot of new
work
stuff.
Things.
I saw your
Yeah.
thing on Threads about how
Oh yeah.
I'm going to read all the new authors. How many books are you into the Until world of Aurora Rose Reynolds?
All of them.
Oh, I finished that, and then I did the 2 spinoff for Ruby Falls. I did the other spinoff for Clay's Brothers. So I'm all caught up with all of that now.
Oh my gosh.
So then I have to go back and I'm going to do the Wide Open Spaces next.
Okay.
Ooh,
Have you read then Assumption and all of those?
Yeah, I did those last year.
Okay. I love those books. Jenny, how was your reading week?
It was all right. I read a book and a half.
There you go. That on top of school and children that it's finally February.
My God, it is finally February.
After 7,000 days of January, it is finally February.
I swore the month was never going to end.
They never
And now
went to
February will be
school.
over before you know it.
Jenny's kids didn't
There's
go to school.
29 days in February though this year.
So, okay, so new term of the week. We're back with terms of the week.
Term of the week.
Each week we're going to go over a romance book term. Some of you might be familiar with these, others might not be. So, romance term of the week this week. Kink. In the context of romance books, the term kink refers to a non-traditional or unconventional sexual preference or desire that deviates from the conventional norms. It can involve a wide range of activities, fantasies, or behaviors that may be considered outside the mainstream or typical expression of romantic or sexual relations. Kink can vary wildly and may include elements such as BDSM, role-playing, fetishism, and other forms of erotic exploration. In romance, exploring characters with different kinks can add a complexity to the story and provide a more nuanced portrayal of relationships. Authors may incorporate kink to depict characters' sexual preferences, desires, and the dynamic of their intimate connections. It's important to note that the portrayal of kink in romance books can vary in terms of explicitiveness, with some books delving deep into the exploration of unconventional desires, while others may only touch upon them in more subtler manners, aka porn without plot.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kink. That is what we mean when we say this book has kink.
Mm-hmm.
Was that good?
You're welcome, everybody, for that definition. But also, we unlock new kinks this week, and we were unaware of.
Savage Little Games inspired this week's term of the week. Okay, so what are we talking about this week?
We were talking about a delightful topic this week.
I spiced up our intro.
Oh, did you? How?
I did. In this installment of Buzzing About Romance, we are diving headfirst into the charisma of chaos with discussing some of our favorite villains, morally ambiguous figures, and anti-hero characters. Discover what attracts us to these complex personas and why they play a unique role in the narratives we love. So, people, we are talking morally gray, the anti-hero, and the villain. And apparently Jenny has a villain in her room right now while she's recording as she gives him all the side eye.
It's just the dog. It's not a villain. It's the pups.
Oh my God. Look, I spiced up the intro. Did you like that?
I did like that.
Okay. See, freshen things up. 2024 is the year. We're going to make things spicy. Okay, let's talk about the difference between the three.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, so
I was confused for like, yes, I had issues.
I wrote basically a dissertation for you.
I know. And then I am very much a rule follower. It was like, oh my gosh, it doesn't fit neatly in the box.
Boxes
Same.
are just
They're like
guidelines.
suggestions.
Seriously, Jenny, have you learned nothing from this podcast?
Rules and boxes are suggestions.
Okay, I'm good.
Did
Take a
my
sharp left, Jenny.
descriptions confuse you, Amanda?
No, they didn't confuse me, but I think I just, before you put the descriptions down, I had like a big list, and then I was,
I
I
didn't
had to
even read.
change what categories I had them in my original list. So
That's
that
fair.
was
I
it.
didn't even read your descriptions.
You never do, which is why this works really well. Why, when Leah and I are on an episode together, it's just usually a mess.
We make our own rules.
We do. Okay, so a villain, in the context of this episode, the hero villain in a romance is the character with shades of gray, challenging traditional notions of heroism. The narrative typically explores their journey of self-discovery, redemption, and the power of love to transform them, even the most morally complex individuals. Difference between a hero who is a villain and an anti-hero. A hero villain is a character with a mix of heroic and villainous traits who has to have the redemption, while an anti-hero lacks many conventional heroic qualities and may not necessarily transform or seek redemption throughout the narrative. Both character types challenge traditional notions of heroism, but they do so in different ways. So, what I mean by this is that a villain is going to have a redemption arc, right?
Mhm.
That was my problem. I was like, this guy did not redeem himself.
Then
He cannot be a villain.
he is staying
He's
an
an
anti-hero.
anti-hero.
Anti-heroes do not care about your redemption. They are going to keep doing what they do, and they are non-traditional. So if we think about it in generalities, many of the mafia heroes and probably most of the motorcycle club heroes, or even heroines, because I have a couple heroines, are going to fall in the anti-hero versus the villain.
Yeah.
So morally gray heroes, anti-heroes, and hero villains all share a common thread of moral complexity, but there are subtle distinctions in how each archetype characterizes. Morally gray. A morally gray hero operates in a moral middle ground, making decisions that may be ethically questionable or challenging conventional norms. I think, personally, and if you haven't read these books yet, I am still not sure what is wrong with you. The best example of a morally gray hero are Rena Morgan's Men of Haven.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Jenny
I would
hasn't
say
read
that-
them. So seriously, I'm giving you a deadline, Jenny. You are going to get kicked out. We cannot be besties anymore.
I mean, she knows that's not true, but
She knows it's not true because who's going to drink deck margaritas with me?
that's true because she doesn't have to travel far to get to you.
He doesn't. The morally gray hero, their actions are often driven by a sense of protagonism, personal beliefs, or a willingness to make tough choices for the greater good. So think Robin Hood. Robin Hood is morally gray. But Robin Hood is also an anti-hero because he doesn't stop. Okay.
I feel like most, not all, but most of the morally grays are also anti-heroes. But sometimes the morally gray is more of a like characteristic of them than the anti-heroism.
Yeah. Okay. An anti-hero lacks many conventional heroic qualities and may engage in morally ambiguous or even morally reprehensible behavior like kidnapping, holding hostages, threatening to shoot you. These are not typical good guys. Anti-heroes are often driven by personal goals, self-interest, or a disregard for societal norms. Their actions may be morally justified by traditional standards. And then the villain. A hero villain combines both heroic and villainous qualities, creating a character with complex moral makeup. They may have committed morally questionable acts, but also exhibit traits associated with redemption. Motivation often driven by conflicting desires or internal struggles. Hero villains may seek redemption for past actions, leading to a transformation over the course of the narrative. In essence, a morally gray hero operates within the gray area of morality, but still adheres to some ethical principles. An anti-hero rejects traditional heroism and may engage in morally questionable behavior without necessarily seeking redemption. Meanwhile, the villain possesses both heroic and villainous traits, undergoing a redemption arc that challenges the transformation for their moral standing. Each archetype contributes to a nuanced exploration of morality, character development in storytelling. Okay. Did I make that clear? Clear as mud, right? So, why do you like these characters? Why do you keep reading them, Leah?
Because they are delightful. Because honestly, they're not the type of people that I deal with in my everyday life. Like, there are the jerks in like my everyday life, but like they're so far out of the realm of my reality that like it takes me out of reality when I read these characters. And honestly, like 9 times out of 10, these guys are the assholes. And we all know I love to read an asshole.
You do love an asshole. What about you, Amanda? What is it about these types of characters that keeps you reading them? Because you have quite a list.
I do. But I think it's the same as Lee. I do like an asshole. I will pick one up. I mean, there's a certain time where I'm in the mood for one and I'll read them, and then I read a lot. I'll kind of binge that type. And I think it's probably similar that, it kind of takes me out of reality because I don't really know people like that in real life. But I mean, I also think they're very dynamic a lot of times, just there's usually like a push and a pull and just something that just kind of keeps me coming back, I guess.
Yeah. What about you, Jenny? Because this is kind of not in your safe realm,
Not so much,
but we've
especially if they're
pushed you into this circle.
right, especially if they're like a dominant person, like in the relationship, I struggle with it. But I think part of the reason I'm attracted to these type of heroes is because if I had unlimited funds and a network of people, I would probably be morally gray, anti-establishment.
No, I see that. I think for me, what it is about these stories is typically these stories are dynamic and we see really great character development. I mean, it is easy to identify how their arc moves. It's easy to see, like, you can't do that. And how is she going to be okay with that? And I think that it takes, especially some of these authors that write in these gray, black worlds, that they create such a dynamic that you think, oh, okay, this really could contemporarily happen. Like, especially if we use the Menahaven as like kind of the picture there for a little bit, there could be a group of guys that kind of have that found family vibe that are doing what they need to do to be successful, but protecting the people around them.
I think a part of it though too is like these are such strong personalities and it never fails that their heroines cut them off at their knees and you see such a different side to them. Like they can be a really hard person with everybody except for those females or males or whoever their significant other might be who really like see a completely different side to them and it shows their humanity. Like there are these morally gray villains, but they still are these softies in the right moments.
Do you, so this is something that I know some people have struggled with these types of protagonist, is that often the counter protagonist is going to have some too stupid to live vibes. Because not all of my suggestions are male. I do have a couple of females characters that are morally gray, that are villains or are anti-heroes. So overall, would you say more times than not the heroine is kind of that too stupid to live, or is she more like Leah says, like willing to cut him at the knees, to rein him in?
I think a lot of mine are willing to cut him at the knees. I think my picks tend to be both strong characters when the hero is more morally gray or a villain and that type of thing. I mean, I have some that where they're a little bit maybe wishy-washy to begin with, but the majority of mine are strong counterparts as well.
What about you, Jenny? Do you think that
I think most of them need to be like a very strong character in their own right, like free meat, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Kidnapping, coffee spilled, whatever. But I think sometimes the like innocent, happy person can kind of be like a catalyst for maybe more of the villain or the morally gray characters?
wouldn't you
Well,
say
because
go
like
ahead.
in that one Neva Alta book, she is like this sunshiny person and she has too stupid to live vibes, but she's not. And like he's definitely an anti-hero.
Well, the Michelle Hurd one where captured by the sinner,
Mm-hmm.
it's survival. And that's the
Yeah.
other piece that I think goes hand in hand with these book. There is always an element of survival, that the survivors are at the end. That's who's getting the HEA, is those who can climb out, overcome, and move forward in this world that is, dark and gritty and
Mm-hmm.
violent. And while none of us are living, mafia Vegas, there is some hope to the idea of surviving, right?
Right. Like I said earlier, I'm a rule follower, but I mean, there comes an instance where like you gotta throw the rules out the window, and that's kind of part of all of these is like, this might be a circumstance where following the rules is not an option.
Yeah. And I don't think any of us really read bully romances.
I
And
mean, I'll dabble in them, but they're not my forte.
I do think you tend to see a lot more of villain characters in the bully styled romances because they will get the redemption. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are subtle changes to their behaviors, at least in my experience. Amanda, what is it about the asshole, the anti-hero, the morally gray, the villain that keeps you coming back? What is it about these characters that you're like, give me?
I mean, and I not to say my husband is not, morally gray or an anti-hero or whatever, but he is a bit of an asshole. And I
Same.
like it. So it's
like it.
so I mean, deep-seated, I mean, at my core, I think that's just what I'm attracted to.
Same. What about you, Leah? What is it that keeps you coming back to these books?
I don't know. There's just something about the way the authors write these characters that they pull me in and refuse to let me go. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna keep reading that.
I always think, and everyone thinks that, like, I know that there are people that feel that mafia or this darker romance can have kind of a formula to it. Like, they're all the same. I don't think so. Like, we had that experience this week.
Yeah.
It was a wild freaking ride.
Yeah.
And
It
I was
really
like,
was.
what's happening now? And I think that we even get that a little bit with morally gray characters too, is that there are, like, I think of Kylie Kent's the second gen in the Valentino family.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are definitely more morally gray
Yeah.
than they are true anti-heroes.
Mm-hmm.
But each book is a wild ride.
Yeah.
Like, you're not sure where you're coming from and where you're going.
Well, and she's one of those examples where she creates this world and she's like has been in this world for a while, but like you read the cousins, you read the siblings, you read like the outskirts of it, and none of the stories, like they might have similar themes in them because they are the same family, but none of the stories are the same. Like the one cousin, she has a one night stand with a Russian dude that like she's not supposed to like, and they end up getting pregnant, and it's like, but she ends up like stabbing him because she's supposed to be killing him. But and it's like, but it's this wild ride of chaos. But it was so good.
So good. I agree. Um, and I also feel like there's enough twists and turns that they give us in these books
Mhm.
that even though you might think, I know how this is going to end, it doesn't
Don't
always end
always.
exactly the
always.
way you think it is. What were you going to say, Amanda?
I said not always.
Not
Sorry.
always. I also think if for those that love romantic suspense, this is romantic suspense, but really crazy, over the top protectors and not so much rule followers.
But you
Yeah, I
find
mean, you see that too in romantic suspense.
Mhm.
Like even with like when you get the security firms, they're usually no longer working for the government. They're off on their own and they're kind of, breaking the rules a little bit. I mean, maybe partially sanctioned, but there's a little bit of morally gray in a lot of those.
because I honestly like Zane, like he's more villain than really anything. He's not on my list, but he definitely is a
He's
villain.
definitely morally gray. I don't know about, I wouldn't call him a villain.
I would because
Does he have a
dude is
redemption
not,
arc? Does he have a redemption arc? Does he seek
No.
redemption?
not really.
No, he's,
Not a
I would
villain.
say maybe anti-hero.
Then he's an anti-hero. If
Oh,
there's
he
no
definitely is.
redemption arc for
I don't
him,
think he's a villain.
if he doesn't change,
That's true. He doesn't change. He is one way. I mean, he does change for his heroine, but that would be about the only time.
Yeah, but not how he does things really.
It's true.
So no, I would say morally gray anti-hero. Maybe.
and so good point brought up is that these character types are possessive
Oh yeah.
of their partner. There's absolute touch her and die vibes. Touch him and she will cut you, because I'm trying to think of, there's one of the Neva Altas. And I know we
Mhm.
get it in Michelle Hurd a couple of times where
Yeah.
like he's my man. You look at him and
Well, you kind of get that with Jill Ramsauer, like in Silent Lies. Like she has that vibe too.
she does. She does.
You get that in the Adelaide Forest, the Beauty and Lies series as well.
I didn't even delve into that Heaven and Hell series when I went looking for heroes,
I
anti-villains.
didn't even think about those ones. They're all morally gray.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of like the one that's the Hitman one.
Oh yeah.
He's a villain because he does have a redemption arc. He stops giving her drugs to sleep with her.
This is
Anyway,
true. Those would be good ones. I didn't even think about those.
those
ones.
books are not for you too. Jenny and
No.
Amanda, those books,
They're
not for you. I will push you outside of your comfort zone, but those are not books for you. Neither one. Okay, so these characters tend to have real life red flags, but they're green flags in our romance.
Yep.
What are some of the red flags that are green flags for us in our romance? I mean, stalking.
Multiple weapons.
What did you say, Jenny?
Multiple weapons on them at
Yeah.
all times.
Oh, all the time too.
Yes. Um,
There's a lot of stalking. There's a lot, well, like there's a lot of throwing away birth control.
yeah. Only the ones Leo reads because
Right? I'm like,
seriously.
I do have a weird fascination with the breeding kink. I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but I do like them.
We know. We know. Amanda,
Anyway.
what's a green flag in romance but a red flag in real life?
Kidnapping,
Kidnapping.
obviously.
Yeah.
Mm.
I
Then
think
I have some others.
if he's cutting you off from your family and saying you can't be talking to those people anymore,
He only does it for her own good, though.
you know, that's separation of the herd. That's a classic sign of abuse. But green flag in romance.
Yes, yes, please.
Okay, so as we do with every episode, we now need to give you these book recs. We need to talk about some of our favorite anti-heroes, villains, morally gray characters that keep us coming back, and the authors that write them. So are we going to follow the rules that I wrote out in my thesis?
You wrote rules?
What were the rules?
No, I gave you like descriptors in my thesis of all of these character types. But
Amanda
we're not.
and I have already followed the rules.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, but that's
Leah
what I
did
was going to
too.
say
I
is
saw
if
she
you,
was putting it on here.
I will not be like grading you if you classify someone as a villain, and I really think they're more of an anti-hero, is what I'm
Yeah,
trying to
You will
say.
be judging us,
Okay.
though.
Right.
Haughty derision, default. Okay, so let's just start with the morally gray. So
Okay.
in this realm, if we go with what I described, morally gray is going to be the least of the bad guys, then the villain, and then the anti-hero.
I wouldn't say my morally grays are the least of the bad guys.
Okay. Then are they anti-heroes?
My anti-heroes
Yes.
are the least of the bad guys.
How can your
You did not-
anti-heroes be the least
She
of the
did
bad?
not follow
She
the
didn't follow the
rules.
rules.
She didn't follow. Anti-heroes will have no redemption arc. They have zero redeemable qualities at the end of their book.
Okay, well then I'll just swap my status there.
And villains are going to have a redemption arc. They're going to maybe kill less.
Well, my villains are definitely villains but my villains, they're like villains in other books, and like their book is their redemption arc.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine. Okay, so let's start with the morally gray. The least of the bad guys or
Oh,
bad
fine.
characters.
Here, let me swap my notations here.
Amanda, kick us off. Give us 2 or 3 of your morally gray heroes. Tell us the book, the author, and a little bit about the character.
Okay. My first one is Vipers and Virtuosos. That's by Sam R. Miller. It is book 2 in her Monsters and Muses series. The character is Aiden James. He's a rock star, and I think he is probably him and maybe one other are the only 2 in that series that are actually morally gray versus anti-heroes. But Aiden is a rock star, and he meets his heroine Riley at a party, and they end up hanging out together a little bit, and then she actually has to run away due to circumstances, and he's obsessed with her, so he finds her and stalks her and does some stuff to her lotion, but he's not. You have to read it.
I
But
just needed that statement for me to want to
He's not
read
an
it.
anti-hero. He's not involved in any kind of nefarious acts. He just becomes obsessed and stalks her, and
So
they,
does things to
make
her
it work.
lotion. Are we
does he
thinking
do?
like
What does he do to
something
her
about
lotion?
Mary lotion, hair gel kind of type things?
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
Kind of. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh.
And
Hello,
never
red
tells
flag in
her,
real
never
life.
tells her, and she breaks out in a rash, and he never tells her why. Still doesn't know. So it's a whole like
It's a whole thing.
situation. I can't like I read that book and I was like, I finished it and I was like, I don't like him, but I'm pretty sure that I love him. And I
Fair.
can't explain it. Can't explain it. Still can't explain it. But
Okay,
yeah.
give us another morally gray.
Uh,
Unless you want to take a
so
moment and we can make Jenny
no,
give
no,
us
no,
one.
no. No, I can keep going.
Go.
I'll do one I know that somebody doesn't have. I have Heart of Obsidian by Nalini Singh. That's in her Side Changeling series. And so throughout the series, they kind of mention Caleb Krychek, he's like a high level, what they call a psi. So he has like mental powers and whatever. And he's kind of lurking around in the background and nobody really knows what's going on. He's like kind of like the boogeyman. But then when you finally get to his book, you find out that he's doing things behind the scenes to kind of save their people from falling apart or whatever. So without going into too many details, that's a long series, but he's one of the better characters in that series, and he's a complete fool for his heroine.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. We'll come back.
Come back in. I'm good.
Jenny, what do you got for morally gray?
Okay. The Tarnished Empire series by Shane Rose. That includes Shattered Vows, Fractured Freedom, and Corrupted Chaos. And all the main male characters in that series, I would describe as morally gray because
I
they're
think
not
Corrupted
really
Chaos, don't you think he's a little bit of a villain?
a little bit. It does. I mean, I struggled with the rules, but I mean,
Fair.
they're all doing things that aren't quite legal, but
They like
they have a
toe the
reason for
line.
they have a reason for doing them that might not be so bad.
Okay. Got another one?
Um, Beautifully Cruel duet by JT Geisinger. That's Liam and Killian Black. And if you read the series,
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're twins and they play both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to get
That's
because they're seeking revenge for something.
they are. And the revenge gives purpose, but it's shady AF.
Right. And they definitely, yeah, work both sides of the system.
It's so funny, Jenny, because I do not think of you loving morally gray characters, and I know you like that duet, but that book's a lot bonkers. Okay, Jenny has a dark side. She just pretends to be a good girl. Leah, do you got some morally gray people for us?
I do. So Trent Lawson from A.L. Jackson's Give Me a Reason. He definitely toes the line of right and wrong. But he is very like he's an intense guy. He does what he has to for the people that he cares about, and his like family is family first and always family first. But he just honestly, like, I think every male that Amy writes might be in that morally gray realm.
Well, I had her
I think
Don't
so
Forget
too.
Me Tomorrow, which was
The
her
writer, the
writer.
newest one.
Yeah, because
Although her new book, I don't know. I mean, he's
he's
a
law
cinnamon roll
enforcement
according to her,
and he's law
and he's
enforcement.
law enforcement. So like, but even like in her, I think it's her. I don't remember which series it is, but she has a police officer, and it's the third book in the series. But he's definitely morally gray. Like he's not. I mean, he's by the book, but he's not at the same time. So Amy definitely toes that morally gray
Yeah.
line with her heroes. And then I have
Which is interesting if
in
you think about it, because I wouldn't classify A.L. Jackson as writing dark romance.
oh no,
She
no.
definitely writes just contemporary, but there are some darker elements. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't read dark romance, it's not my thing, hold the
Well,
phone. You can see these kinds of characters in contemporary stories.
actually, all of my morally grays are more contemporary.
Okay. What you got next?
So my next one is actually it's Rebecca Sharp. It's In Too Deep. It's part of her Winter Games series, and it's Nick Frost. So Nick is this guy he's a partier. He has a lot of secrets that nobody really knows, like why he is the way he is, and that, but his storyline, he needs somebody to tutor his daughter. But you see this other side of him that you're not expecting. Like when you're first introduced to this character, he's like this really cold, standoffish, like jerk. Like they're the snowmaholes or something like that. Like that I can't remember what like their moniker is, but it's like they're snowmass holes. Like they're basically the assholes of like the Val or like the mountain. But so I just really like the way that Rebecca Sharp created his storyline where it's like he has this almost persona that he shows everybody else, and it is him, but it's not him at the same time.
Yeah.
So with his heroine and his daughter, like you see just this vastly different side to him.
So for Morley Gray, I actually have a heroine. Hacker by Sawyer Bennett, BB, is Morley Gray.
Mhm.
She is, a hacker and doing things for the ultimate good, but she definitely functions within the gray
Mhm.
of that realm, that world. Another Morley Gray. So this was really funny as I was thinking about this, and I was trying to think of heroines and how we would classify a Morley Gray heroine. And if you think of Daisy from The Great Gatsby, she's
Mhm.
Morley Gray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to think of like, who's a Daisy-like character? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought about Antihero by Sarah Kate. Sage in that book is a Daisy. And if we start breaking that book down a little bit, that book is almost a Gatsby retelling.
Oh,
Like if you
yeah.
start picking apart at the different pieces of that book and how she layers that story, it's a Gatsby retelling. And Daisy is very much a Morley Gray heroine. And so for that book, it was Sage. Her name is Sage, and she is,
Yeah.
working in the gray and doesn't, it's not necessarily for bad, but it's definitely self-serving. Okay. We'll come back around. Before we move on to the next one, does anybody have any other morally gray characters they really need to get out into the world?
I have one, and I think it's just because they're both morally gray. It's Deceptive Night by Sienna Snow. That's book 3 in her Street Kings series. And Ray and Lenny are both very morally gray.
Yeah, I had Nick from
Okay.
from Dangerous
Yeah.
King as being morally gray because he is definitely.
And I think reading that whole series, like all of the heroes and heroines are all kind of morally gray.
Yeah.
If they're all working under the radar for something else kind of against the system. So I think that's a really good series if you want to get like both, hero and heroine morally gray.
Yeah, because if you think about Nick's heroine too, she's kind of
She is.
working outside the
Mhm.
system.
And it's funny that you think of like, because I was gonna give this at the very end, but the Dylan Sisters duet by Bryn Asher and Layla Frost, like both the hero and the heroine, like all 4 of them are like morally gray, like dabble in the anti-hero realm, but it's like all 4 of them have like this agenda almost of like how their lives are supposed to go. But that is an excellent duet.
Okay, so let's go on to our villains, because with a villain, we are going to see a redemption arc. They might not change completely, but
Mhm.
something is going to change in how they function in the world now that they have found love. So it could be something as simple as they were a man whore and then had a redemption arc. So for an example, I don't know if many of us have read this one. Vicious Vow by Sarah Bale. Odin Villuff. Is that how you say it?
I don't have a
He
clue.
is a villain. He is a true villain. He is holding the daughter hostage while marrying and sleeping with the mother.
It only happens a couple times though, so it makes it okay.
It's okay. But there is a
I
redemption
mean, that's
arc
basically what he says.
because he finally kicks the mother to the curb and stays with the daughter. Uh,
Oh yeah, he's a villain.
he's just a villain. Like, and he's an asshole.
But it's delightful.
There's not a lot of redeemable qualities
No.
for him. Okay, so that's just an example. But Leah, we'll go to you. Give us a couple villains.
Okay, so I have Dmitry Romanov from
damn
The
it.
Bastard's Bargain by Katie Robert. So this is one
Oh,
of
that's
those.
one we just added last
I know.
minute.
I know.
It was. You guys didn't think of him right away, did you? Because honestly, he was one of the first.
I said his
villains
name was
thought of.
Ivan.
Yeah, and Becky and I were talking about this earlier because I was like, I was trying to put a
Who's
different one on
Ivan?
there.
There's no Ivan.
There's
There's
not.
no
But
Ivan.
yeah. So she, throughout this series, like you do not like this character. Like he is a shit stirrer. He is like pushing buttons. He is
He's
creating
the first
chaos.
villain I ever fell in love with.
And then she gives us his book, and he is a wonderfully crafted character that you just really, really enjoy by the end of his book. So
It's a good
perfect.
one.
And then I also have Darkest Before Dawn by Maya Banks. The villain is Hancock. Again, he is a character who throughout the series, which you don't like him. Like
Oh.
like the wheels are turning. He is creating bad things. Like he is pushing buttons. But then you get to his story and you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like him. And you still aren't sure if you like him by the end of his book, but you do understand him. But yeah, so he's a really good one too.
He is a really good one. That was a good one. Amanda, what do you got for villains?
Okay, I'm gonna go outside of contemporary. I'm gonna lean a little more towards fantasy for my villains because I think the majority of the villains that I love are probably in fantasy or paranormal.
That's okay.
And my first one, I'm gonna shout out to Stacy because I know she's actually rereading the Kate Daniels series right now. But mine is Hugh Dambray. He's actually the villain in Alona Andrews' Kate Daniels series, and he's terrible. Like he's terrorizing Kate the entire time, going after her and her family and Curran and his pack of shifters. And then you go through, I think there are like 9 books in that series, and he's terrible the whole time. And then she spins off into Iron and Magic, which actually turns out to be his book. And after he's just fallen apart, after he's he and his Roland are defeated in the Kate Daniels books, then he kind of gets his own story where he's with a white witch, and it's just it's a whole redemption thing because the whole time you're reading it, like he's an ass in the first series, but you're also kind of attracted to him because he was kind of raised from a small boy into being this preceptor of the Iron Dogs, which is just like he leads an army of like people trying to like run over other people. And I don't know, he's probably my favorite villain.
Okay. Do you have another one?
Yes. Jared Adler from Olivia Wildenstein's Feather. So that's actually a trilogy, and it's about angels, and the angels are supposed to pick sinners and bring down their sinner score so that they can get feathers to basically ascend to heaven at some point.
Interesting.
So Jared is what's known as a triple. So he has 100 points. He's like the worst sinner out there. He leads the Parisian mafia. Like his score never gets better. And Lee, who's the angel trying to bring it down so she can get her full wings, they fall in love, and it's I'm not spoiling it because it says it right on the blurb, but this is a Romeo Juliet retelling, and he doesn't get he doesn't complete his character arc until the end of book 3, and all kinds of things happen, and it's another really good one.
Okay.
Sounds interesting.
Jenny, what are your villains?
I struggled with the villains because they had to redeem themselves, right?
Right.
So Sins of a King, which is Sins book number 1. There's 8 books by Emma Slate. He is the male main character for books 1 through 3. Flynn Campbell. And he's in the mob, but she kind of like gets him to be a cleaner mob guy, if that's a thing. You know, some things are legal. I mean,
Sure.
so he changes some of his ways. Again, I really struggled with these. Like, I realized that, like, if I read a bad guy, like, I want them to stay bad.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Do you have another one?
Not So Prince Charming by Lauren Landish. Gabriel Jackson, he's like sent to kill her and has like a sketchy past.
Okay.
And then they fall in love.
So Penelope Sky, she pretty much writes anti-heroes, but in her lesser series, it's a 3-book trilogy. All of her couples get 3 books. That's just how Penelope Sky writes. So the lesser series, the hero is a villain. He runs a blood diamond company, and he is the financer for all of the mobs in Europe. And but his redemption arc comes in that he saves the heroine from whose brother, who is the head of all the sex trafficking in Europe. And he
That was
also
nice of him.
right, but he's also at war with his brother. And in the end of book 3, he forgives his brother.
Oh.
So it's, I thought it was going to be a little Cain and Abel, but it wasn't. There was like forgiveness and a group hug. It was delightful. And her books do not have any consent. So if consent is important for you, do not read Penelope Sky. Another villain that I think these are villains is Zoe Blake, the Cavallari Billionaires series. These are villains.
Call them villains. Yeah.
They're villains. They're morally
Also no
gray
consent.
villains. But in the end, they all kind of try to stay on the straight and narrow. They kind of redeem themselves.
I'd say they stay more in the dark gray as in the light gray.
But they do have some redemption.
They do.
Like,
yes,
I think
I
about
agree.
book 2, what is that one? Sins of the Sun?
Mm-hmm.
I think that, he redeems himself. He helps save her and protect her. So.
Well, and he sees the error of his ways.
And he murders people for her.
He does.
I mean, come on, that's redemption.
It's true.
I don't think I have any. Well, I have several other villains, but the Den of Sin duet by Renee Rose and Alta Hensley, Armando, he's sent to kill the heroine, and he doesn't.
Because he falls in love.
He falls in love. There's lots of kidnapping and tying up and.
Like good tying up or just tying up?
Well, everybody should have sex with handcuffs. Okay, so let's get to the worst of the worst. The anti-hero. The men who are going to do bad. But boy, do they love their heroines. And they're going to keep doing bad.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jenny, kick us off here. Who are your anti-heroes?
Sinful Crown by Ava Harrison, Gideon Byrne. He kidnaps the heroine. She escapes. He kidnaps her again. He kills multiple people throughout the time that she is kidnapped, and really does not ever change his ways. He even like his reasoning for kidnapping her is a little sketchy. So yeah, he's anti-hero.
Okay.
Road to Fire by Maria Lewis. The heroine Ilsa Quinn, this is not like a spoiler because it's on the blurb. She kills the king,
Okay.
and she is ready to like burn the whole country down for her purpose.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's a good one.
Leah, who do you got for anti-heroes?
So I have all of Jagger Cole's heroes because it was hard to like narrow down because he writes all like anti-heroes who gives hero fucks. Like they do not change, like from page 1 to page 201. They they adapt for their heroine, but like their behaviors don't change. Like they are they just do what they are gonna do, and damn anyone who gets in their way.
What else do you have for anti-hero?
So I have Lachlan Duke from Until I Get You by Claire Contreras.
Oh,
Lachlan also is one of those ones where he is going to do what he wants to do, like the
yeah.
NHL contract be damned. Like, yeah,
He never apologizes for what he does
he does not
either.
apologize for a single thing that he does, right or wrong. Like he is who he is, and he's going to do what he's going to do, and he's going to get his girl. And then he's going to like annihilate her because he's mad, but it's going to be okay but then he will take care of her because people did her dirty.
They
But
did.
yeah, so he's a good
But
one.
he's like burning the world.
Oh, he's going to burn the world down.
Yeah.
And then some.
Amanda, who do you have for anti-heroes?
Okay, so my first one is Dante Salvatore from the Anti-Heroes in Love duet by Gianna Darling. I read 3 cheating books to get to this hero. So, because they had to be read in order. So I rage read those 3 books to get to this duet. And that will tell you how much I love this man. His heroine is Elena, and the people in the cheating book are her sister and her ex. So she finally gets her man, who is Dante, and he is head of the mob faction. I forget they call it something else in New York from his like Sicilian counterparts. And he is unapologetic. He kills people, and she's his attorney. And he gives zero anything like thoughts about just anything other than making her happy and taking over as head of this mob faction in New York. And it was like 1,200 pages of just complete like assholery that I couldn't get enough of.
You were there for.
So yeah.
Okay, what else do you got for villains or anti-heroes?
I'm gonna go with a heroine. Well, anti-heroine, I guess. So it's Evie Westerly from Emily McIntyre's Wretched. So that's the like Wizard of Oz kind of retelling. And she is the Wicked Witch of the West. Her last name's Westerly. But she's actually the mastermind behind a street drug. And she has no plans to stop. She still keeps going. It's about kind of like her weeding out people in her family and in her organization that are just kind of out to get her. And then she corrupts the DEA agent assigned to her, Nick, who's her hero in this book. And yeah, there's no redemption. And it's fantastic.
Amanda, you remember how I was telling you that there was an FBI agent that was trying to like turn the heroin and all that
Oh,
kind
is
of
that
stuff?
the one you were trying to think of?
No, it's a
No.
Jocelyn Soto book.
Oh,
That's part in her cartel, her vicious union series. Anyway, that's where it was. Thank you. You now made me remember. That'll be next up on your list of jobs to
perfect.
do.
I'm ready.
Okay, so anti-heroes. So I will say Butcher and Blackbird by Bren Weaver, which is a popular book that's out right now. I just recently read this. Rowan and Sloane are both anti-heroes. They are murderers of serial killers. They're going to keep on murdering to murder. That is not changing who they are. So that's a really great example of what we mean with anti-hero. Another really great anti-hero, Joey from Sadie Kincaid. She is just starting her journey into anti-heroism. She
but
wants...
she like takes the reins and runs.
Yeah, she wants in on the family business. She does not want to be the simpering female on the sidelines watching things. She wants to reign and cause mayhem and chaos. So there's that. And let's see here. Do I have any others that absolutely... So, Jenny, did you move on to book 4 in the ML Philpitt series? That's the Rapunzel retelling?
Yeah, I'm on book 6.
Are both of those 2 anti-heroes in that book in book 4?
Well,
Do they redeem
changed.
themselves?
I put all of those characters, all of them, female, male, all of them in the morally gray.
All of them in the morally gray.
Because they're still operating within all of that.
Yeah.
After they get their HEA.
And I would say every hero within the Perfectly Imperfect series by Neva Alta, they're all anti-heroes.
Oh, yeah.
No one has a redemption arc in that series.
No.
I don't think so.
No. I mean, they're psychos. They scoop eyeballs. Like, they burn things to the ground on purpose. Yeah. Well, in Kylie Kent, she has a couple heroines. Angelica, who is part of the original Valentine, she enjoys the kill.
I mean,
and her daughter Izzy, who is the one who is supposed to stab her Russian dude, she's an anti-heroine as well, I would say. Although she does feel bad for stabbing him. She does not feel bad for other things that she does, though.
Are there any other books we didn't mention that absolutely we should have on this list if you're making a anti-villain or a villain, anti-hero, or morally gray? If you're making a TBR of chaos, is there anyone that should be on there? I feel like that's what this TBR is. This is the TBR of chaos.
It's delightful, though.
It really is.
I had Leo Morelli from Beast of Bishop's Landing
Oh,
on for my anti-hero.
I
he's
had
a
Winston
delight, though.
Constantine from the Skyscraper Cinderella series.
I think
Kay
you could probably just
Webster's.
put that whole, you could do that whole like Midnight Dynasty
Yeah.
They're
list
all
on
definitely
there.
morally gray,
Yeah.
and more of them are villains than are, because they do have a redemption arc in those
Mhm.
books. Not
Yeah,
many of them stay
true.
anti-hero.
I don't think Winston has a
Yeah,
redemption
I don't-
arc.
Do you think
Don't
Leo
you
has
think
a redemption
because-
arc?
Well, don't you think in Winston, don't you think he does, because he protects her and changes her. He doesn't just keep using her.
But I wouldn't say overall.
Well, but he's
he
more
changes.
accepting of like his family and his place in the family.
Yeah, I
think he's
guess.
kind
I
of
think he
he's
would be
nicer
more
to
villain.
Percy.
That's true. He is.
And Leo, you know, while he still is angry and mad, he's definitely more involved in the family after the end of his book.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the family's not exactly good, so I don't.
That's why I
That's
think they're
true.
more like villains. Because he does
I'd
have
say-
a redemption arc.
Yeah,
Leo is not the same
Okay.
character.
Yeah, and then when
Because
he
he's holding her
pops up in other
hostage.
books, when he pops
I
up
can
in
see
other
that.
books, he's definitely softer.
Softer.
Okay, I'll change him to villain on my list.
Don't,
I would s-
but don't
would say
read
Midnight
Own, Defy,
Dynasty
or
is-
any of those. Don't read those.
No, don't
Plain.
do that.
Those were bad. Okay, guess what time it is?
It's that time.
It's that
Our
time.
book
Book
of
of the week. Book of the week time. Leah, you're up first.
My book of the week is actually I have two, so because I couldn't decide. So I have Savage Little Games by Lane Hart. It is book 1 in her Sins of Mafia series. Like, you need to read this book. It is amazing and wonderful, and like new kinks are unlocked, and it's just they're older characters. but it just is very well done. And also Possessive Heart by Brighton Walsh. This is I think it's book 5 in this series, this family series. It is the sisters book, and it is brother's best friend. He's an NHL player. He has a dirty mouth, people, but it's really well done in the way he pines, she pines, there's mutual pining, it makes sense, and it just is very well done. Okay.
Um,
I'm done.
who's Jenny? Since you're tagging in for Heather, sorry.
Surprise, surprise. Mine is The Sound in Silence by M.L. Philpott. I'm reading very slowly, but I'm getting there. This is book 5 in the Fractured Fairy Tales. It's the Little Mermaid retelling. And it was not at all what I thought it was going to be. It was very good, but it was
Not the story you thought it was going to be.
right.
I love it when that happens.
Yes, me too.
Amanda, what's your book of the week?
Okay, I'm still down my Aurora Rose Reynolds rabbit hole. So my book of the week was Before We Fall, which is book
so
1
good.
in her Before series. And it ties into her Until Him Her series. It is Miles and Miranda, and they get together
Tucker.
because
Tucker
did I
and
say?
Miranda.
What did I say? Oh, sorry. I'm waiting on Miles.
Miles is book
See, I
2.
can't. I'm ready for Miles. I can't like get it out of my brain.
It's okay.
So Tucker and Miranda. And they get together because they find out that their spouses are cheating on them with each other. So they get together after the fact. She's a single mom, and I don't know. I really like that one. I think that's been my favorite in my binge so far from her. So
It's a
it's definitely
great
worth
book.
reading.
It's a
It is so
great
good.
book. Okay, my book of the week is At First Bite by Olivia Dade. I have not loved the last 2 books from Olivia Dade, so I went into this hesitantly because it is a new series, so I had hoped that her leaving Hollywood behind would be like beneficial and that we would get those stories that I loved in like 40 Love, and I absolutely did. It was a really well-written story. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to feel about it. Because it's a brother's ex romance. But as always, the fat rep was 10 out of 10. Amazing. I love the small town. And the heroine is the ultimate Googler. Like, she will ignore the people in the room so that she can get an answer to a random thought that has popped into her head. And I love that.
I feel that.
I
am that person.
Yeah.
It was just really well done. She was great and quirky, but not weird. And they are absolute rivals. Like, they could be enemies. These 2 could almost be enemies. Because she has some hatred for the hero. But it was really well done, and I really enjoyed that story. So that's book of the week. Okay, we're on to our next news segment. Can you guess the book based on our quote? Each week, we share a quote from a recent or popular Buzzing About Romance read. You have the chance to email us your guess at quote@buzzingaboutromance.com. We'll announce the correct guess on next week's show. So last week, which was our Aliens, Monsters, and Bonkers episode, the quote was, "And then I went to weep to think I haven't dressed properly for alien abduction." Amber emailed me almost instantly to let me know that it was from Ice Planet Barbarians, book 1. So that was last week's quote. No one has still guessed the quote from the week before about olives and pineapple.
Seriously?
Seriously, I've not had one email about that.
I'm disappointed in you, all of you.
I was going to say, like, this, you should have some judgingness here.
I do.
This week's quote is, "For me, she exists in a place without rules or reason, because without her, nothing else matters." So, if you know what book that is from, feel free to email us, quote@buzzingaboutromance.com. We'll announce the winner next week. Patreon update, because you loved that so much last week.
My gosh.
I thought I would keep it.
It was the worst.
If I cannot get voice effects, you are going to get weird talk from me.
I mean, that's fair. So it's Mike Burrier's fault.
So it's Mike Burrier's fault. Celebrating 1 year in the Hive in the month of February is Patty and Aaron. We are so grateful to have you as a part of the Hive. Celebrating 2 years, EE, Karen, and Jen Ellen.
Yay!
Jen Ellen's first event with us ever was the Galentine's Day that Nikki did our bartending class.
Oh, we were so
and
drunk.
she has stuck around.
Oh my God, we were so drunk that
So
night.
Wow.
I was
so drunk.
wasted.
That was a rough night. It was really a great night, a rough next day.
Yes.
And celebrating 3 years in the Hive is Rachel.
Yay!
Swag packs are headed out this week, so I'm excited to share that our swag pack sponsoring authors for February 2024 are Brenda Rothert, Melanie Moreland, and Cal O'Reilly. Swag packs go out to Fancy Drinks, Cold Brew, and Queen Bee Tier, and we still have fun buzzing about romance exclusive stickers, mood reading cards, and other fun things. These are mailed monthly around the 10th of the month. And we do ship these internationally. This perk is mailed just once monthly. If you join after the 10th, your first swag pack will be mailed the following month. All members of Patreon get exclusive episodes along with perks like Buzzing Book Club. You can find a list of all events at bookcaseandcoffee.com/events, including happy hours, IG lives, and book club. If you are listening to this before February 9th, we are recording live February 9th for our Sunday episode, because the Super Bowl is February 11th and people need to watch the Super Bowl. I don't get it. Whatever. Other things to note. If you are not part of our Facebook group, the Romance Book Hive, you absolutely are going to want to join that, because over the course of the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th of February, we have tons of authors dropping in throughout those 3 days. Giving away books, book money, swag. It's really going to be a good time. We're going to drop in and drop away and give away some stuff. Also, if you are watching us right now on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. I am back on February 8th with Happy Hour and author Hannah Bonham Young, and we are celebrating the traditional pub release of her book, Next of Kin. So there's so much stuff going on. If you do not subscribe to our newsletter, make sure you hop over to the website and subscribe to the newsletter, because February and March are going to be amazing.
And we have been sending out newsletters every Friday, so we are doing better with that.
We are making an effort.
We're making an effort.
It's going really well. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining me for this episode and all of the chaos of villains, anti-hero, and morally gray.
It's always a good time.
Until next time, everybody.
Happy reading, everybody.
Find us on Instagram at Buzzing About Romance or on Twitter at Buzzing Romance. If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.